welcome to episode 2 of The Power of Now with Rich Bruckner. Today I'm going to introduce a guest that I'm really excited to have on here. He's the founder of Box Visuals. He's also the creator of Junkbox Ai. We're going to talk about both ventures and kind of get a little bit of background on doing something that you're passionate about for a living. That, you know, the kind of the topic of the podcast is, it doesn't have to always be something creative, but I'm always interested in people that are following their dream or doing something that they're passionate about. And, you know, as opposed to taking the safe route and doing something that they feel is going to be the most financially stable thing. You know, for myself, I went through a time in my life where I was chasing something that was straight up just creative, and I wasn't concerned with how I was going to pay my bills. And then I went to a point where I jumped into something where I felt like I was going to be financially better off. And then I look back years later and, you know, always had some doubts about, you know, like, why am I throwing away something that I'm so passionate about, which, you know, brought me to, you know, thinking about getting into a podcast. So, without further ado, I'm going to welcome Mike Waller. Thanks for doing the show, man.
Totally. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. This is like probably my third podcast. So,
nice.
Yeah, the first one I didn't go well. I thought it was going smooth, and then afterward I heard it and I was like, whoa. Like, they should have, like, you know, had someone in the back with a timer telling me to just kind of shut up. So try not to do too many run-ons here.
Yeah, so I mean, this is my second episode of this podcast. Back when I was younger, my friends and I, we all got into Joe Rogan like pretty early on, like 2010 about. And we tried to do like the Ustream thing, but we were also all fucked up the whole time. And so there was no rhyme or reason. Like, we were all talking over each other.
Yeah.
And like, I wish I could still find it just to see how it was. But I know that like a day or two after, I would like look at these videos and be like, oh my God, this is fucking embarrassing. And it was nothing like this. The sound wasn't this good. The video wasn't this good. So I'm excited about being able to just have the opportunity to talk to people and do this.
Yeah.
So first I want to ask you, like, how old were you when you realized that you knew what you wanted to do for a living was going to be video related?
Probably when I was like, I think 18, 19 years old, around there. It was like around the same time when I started doing music.
Okay.
So like I became a rapper when I was like 16, 17 in high school, and fell in love with kind of like linear timeline editors like Pro Tools and Logic and Reason, a bunch of different like free programs that we had access to back in the day. And if you know anything about like music production, video production, it's kind of similar in the editing process. You know what I mean? Like working on a linear timeline and then being able to see your content in like, you know, a square and being able to kind of like edit it. Fell in love with that type of like technology.
Yeah. And
also fell in love with just like recording, you know what I mean? Whether it was video or audio. At the time, my friend Johnny Ramirez, he's the one who kind of like brought audio recording and rapping and music, like he brought that around me, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. So I tried that out, fell in love with like the whole recording aspect, the editing aspect. And then, you know, once you start recording enough music, eventually you need music videos, you know what I mean? So we tried recording our first music video using like a laptop, like webcam screen.
Oh shit. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, because it was the only thing we had none of us had cell phones or camera phones back then, you know what I mean? So we had like a old MacBook laptop with a webcam, and we recorded a music video using that, and it was complete trash. Like, we thought it was amazing, you know what I mean? And it actually ended with one of us getting arrested in real life. You know what I mean? It wasn't planned out, but we happened to get it in the music video. So it felt like a win. You know what I mean? We were like, this is a dope music video. And like our local community of people who supported our music fell in love with it, motivated me to do another one. And then to believe it or not, Rich, some years later, I kind of like put it aside, the music video side of it, focused more back into the music. Then kind of like fell off with everything, focused on working, just like getting a job.
Yeah.
And then, believe it or not, I discovered slow motion, 120, being able to shoot in 120 frames per second on the iPhone.
Right.
And that's what made me like fall in love with videography completely. I think I was like probably like 20 at that point. But yeah, like recording and editing, I knew I wanted to do that for a living when I was a kid, you know, when I first like fell in love with music. But then like when I first fell in love with videography, I knew I wanted to do that for a living was when I discovered shooting in 120 frames per second, which is like slow motion.
Yeah.
When it came out, like I think it was like the iPhone 7 when it was like one of the first like time it was featured. And
what kind of job were you doing? Because you said at one point that you were focused on working a different job, and then you found out about slow-mo. What kind of job were you doing at that time?
Yeah, I was doing, my mom ran and managed a construction company.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot of like masonry, woodwork, and like work that pertained to like the roof and like furnace, heating, and stuff like that. Nothing that I was like interested in.
Was there a point you thought that would just be your life and you would...
Yeah, for a while, like that little gray area between me kind of like when I said like I kind of stopped doing everything and just started working. That's when I was like, all right, started like kind of putting everything into perspective and said like, these are my hobbies and this is what I'm doing for a living. And like, you know, as you start getting older, you start thinking like what I'm doing now might be what I'm doing in the future, you know? Well, that's like just kind of like where your brain goes.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Now, did you think for a while about like, I hate doing this, I wish I was doing video, and build up to walking away from that? Or was it like an immediate thing when you were like, you know what, fuck this, I'm just going to leave like right now? Like, was there just like one moment that happened, or did it happen over time?
No, it actually, there was a couple different moments where I was like, all right, I'm quitting. I knew I didn't want to, it was me wanting to work for myself and be an entrepreneur. And there was also me playing tug of war with me just not wanting to work for someone else. So it wasn't like I'm going to continue to work for somebody until I figure out how to work for myself. At some points it was like, I just don't want to work for somebody anymore. So I would just quit, you know what I mean? And I would just kind of be unemployed for a little while. Yeah. So there was a couple moments where I was like, you know, thought like, this is it. But the defining moment was I had a like a little bit of a break from work. I had some vacation time. And after taking that time, I had enough of a big enough window for me to kind of, believe it or not, just build up a really small revolving clientele of videography. It was my first time ever really trying to put my name out there. And then, you know, one person would hit me up on the first week, and then the second week someone else hit me up, the third week someone else hit me up. And I was just trying to make the same amount that I was making in construction. Mm-hmm. And as long as I was doing that, I was like, I'm not going to go back to construction if I could do the same numbers, just, you know, swinging my camera around. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how it started.
So did you ever have a moment after leaving construction where you had doubts and thought that you fucked up and that you might have made a mistake and that you might end up going back to construction?
Was there any moments where I left construction and I was like, and then like I started doing the video stuff and then had doubts in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like not doubts like, okay, I think I'm going back, but definitely fear that like this new lifestyle is temporary. Sometimes when something feels too good, feels like really good, sometimes you think it's too good to be true. So like I suffered from imposter syndrome for a while, and I still do, like especially with some of my newer ventures. And like I always kind of like I'm always kind of like guessing whether or not, I mean, the freelance world is a vicious world to live in. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know what your next job is going to be. So, you know, starting off it's pretty unpredictable if you're going to have work the next week. But as you kind of grow further into business and you get your name out there more, you start getting a reputation, you get a little bit more job security. Yeah. So it's like a little bit easier to kind of plan your moves, and you lose that like fear a little bit. But Yeah. I totally had like doubt. I totally have doubts.
Yeah.
As an artist, you always have doubt. You're always doubting your work in each individual piece. You're always doubting your position as an artist. I think that's a big, strong, instrumental part of what makes you consistently grow. You know what I'm saying? If you didn't have that, you probably wouldn't strive to grow so much.
I want to go back to imposter syndrome, but first I just wanted to say this, like, I know exactly what you're talking about. As far as like leaving one job and going to another is similar. Like, you have that fear of like, and even like learning a new skill. Like when I first learned sales and I started becoming successful at it, I kept on every week that I got a good commission, I would be terrified the next week. Like, can I do that again this week? Right. Or was that just a fluke? It took me a certain amount of time, probably 18 months, before I actually believed, like, oh shit, I actually do know what I'm doing. I'm going to be able to do this week after week after week. How long do you think it took you to get to the point where you realized, like, this isn't a fluke, like I could actually make a living for the rest of my life doing this?
It's just, that's a tough question because, like, I still to this day, you're still kind of just like, in the freelance world, it's really important for me to have creative freedom, creative control. Being a freelance artist is a choice of mine. So like, it's like I said, there's still definitely a risk involved with that. So and also on the other side of the fence, I think that there's a world of opportunity, and I think of myself as just like not really any type of specific artist, but I like to use different tools. I like to explore new technology. So I don't really like to just ground myself in one specific position. So like, I think that in a good way and in a bad way, there's always a chance of like, you know, everything kind of hitting the fan, you know, like you can take on a new habit and it just kind of like brings you into a new lifestyle and you no longer have the time for what you were doing, or you can discover a new hustle that just like outweighs your need to kind of do some of the things that you were doing before. Mm-hmm. And I like to leave like a little little wiggle room for stuff like that. So like, but I guess if I had to put a time on it, probably after like my 4th, 5th year of doing videography is when I said like, if I wanted to, I could probably do this for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? But I'm still looking for like, who knows? You know, I'm fascinated with real estate. I'm fascinated with stocks and finance and just owning businesses in general. So there's a lot of things that I want to kind of explore in the future.
Gotcha. Before we move on, I just wanted to go back to imposter syndrome. For somebody who might not know what that is, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, for me, it's I don't know what the definition of it is. I'm pretty sure it's probably close to how it affects me. But for me, it's like whenever I work really hard, put myself in a position where it's like, okay, now either my lifestyle has changed a bit, or my clientele has changed a bit, or the circle of friends, or just kind of like my colleagues, or something has kind of improved around me, and I'm experiencing a specific lifestyle, but I almost feel like I either don't deserve it, or I'm not really supposed to be there, or I kind of like snuck in, like if you've ever went to a concert and you didn't have a ticket and then you snuck in for like the first 30 minutes of being there, you kind of like feel like people are watching you, and it's only a matter of time before they say like, hey, where's your bracelet? You're not supposed to be here. Get out. Yeah. So like when you get good at something really fast, or when you grow a big following really fast, your ego or your mentality has to catch up to kind of that growth, and you're not really mentally there yet. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people experience that with business. Like, I know for me, I had a friend when I was young that he was always an entrepreneur, and like when we were in 9th grade going into 10th grade, he spent the whole summer working construction and just stacked up all his money, and then at the end of the summer, he bought all this DJ equipment, and he just decided he was going to be a DJ. Yeah. And he was like, he had balls. Like, he went into the school, and he went to somewhere in the high school. He like dropped off business cards, and he's like, yeah, like I actually want to do all the high school football games for free.
That's
I'm a DJ. Yeah, and he started doing all the football games, and from that he got all this business, and he took me around as like a roadie. I'd carry equipment around. He paid me. He gave me a job. And we were doing all these Sweet 16s and all these parties, and I was looking at him like, how the fuck did you just buy all this equipment and decide, like, this is what I'm going to do? He spent, like, however much time learning how to use everything and then just went out there and did it. And I would have been terrified to do that because I was like, I'm not a fucking DJ. I'm just a guy that bought some fucking DJ equipment and learned how to use it. And then, you know, when I started my own business, it was the same thing. Like, I was in business for a year, and I still didn't feel like an owner of a business. Like, I still felt like I was just working at a job because it's just a weird feeling, you know? Like you start to realize that, like people that own businesses are just fucking people. Like, you know, like I always used to think, like, the guy that owns this place and that store is, like, somebody special, but it's just a fucking guy, you know? Like, and, like, it's weird. Like, when you see names of businesses like Long Island, whatever, or South Shore, like, in my head, like, I thought if you own a company that's like national, whatever, like, you have to be like somebody in the government or some shit to have that name. But anybody could just be like, I'm New York pen supplier. Yeah. What the fuck? Like, you just own that business and now you're that guy.
Totally. I remember the first time I kind of like experienced entrepreneur or seen like somebody kind of take that risk as well. It was one of my sister's ex-boyfriends. His name was Sean. And he started a clothing company, like, amongst, you know, his peers in high school. It was just kind of like, you know, urban street kind of like hustle themed, athletic kind of wear, I guess you could call it. And it was, and like it had like a little bit of like momentum when you first put it out there. And I was, like you said, I was super impressed. He was somebody who took bunch of his like earnings and just kind of reinvested it into the production of the clothing, put it out there, kind of marketed it a little bit through Facebook. Yeah. And it was cool. I remember, like, I had his logo in my as my default picture for some time before I even knew what branding was. Right. And, like, so did some of my friends, and and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I thought to myself, like, I thought to myself, wow, like, like you said, like, he must be somebody special, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not cut for everybody. He must be like one of those people who's just cut for. He knows something that we don't. And then as I got older, long story short, not too short, but eventually after, he moved on to other things and left that business behind, and it kind of sizzled out. Right. And that's when I realized that, you know, not that he's not someone special, but it doesn't take someone special to start a business, and it's not really like, if it's just because it's there doesn't mean that it's always going to be there, and just because it's not there today doesn't mean that it never will be there. You know what I mean? It could be a temporary thing. It's not as permanent and as serious as people make it, you know? Yep.
So you did mention that you're not really sure, like, where the future is going to take you. None of us are. But as far as, like, future projects, could you see yourself doing, as far as video goes, a feature-length film, or would you see yourself being in, like, a Netflix series? Is that something that speaks to you, or that's completely out of what you consider yourself doing?
No, totally. I love movies, and, like, that's like the ultimate. I think that's the ultimate format of what I'm doing. I think anybody who holds a camera in their hand at one point in their career, you know, if they're doing it for a job, I think they definitely can find some inspiration in movies, or can eventually see themselves down the line shooting a movie or being a part of that production. I know that traditionally there's a lot of moving parts involved in making a movie. Yeah. And the way that I've kind of trained myself over the years is more of kind of like a run and gun, like a one-man band kind of like production company. And so, like, there's a lot of things that I've taught myself that don't naturally align with what people who are in the traditional movie, you know, industry would teach themselves. But that being said, I still would love to. I in my head, I'm waiting to unlock the knowledge that I think I might need to eventually feel confident enough to make that step. But I know I'm not there yet, so I'm not even really not going to take a half a swing at it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. I understand that completely. And have you ever attempted or written a screenplay at all?
Yeah, I've shot. So like right immediately when I jumped into videography, like I said, that first week of kind of like trying it out when I had that extra time off of work and like finding a client who wanted a music video and then finding somebody else the next week and then finding somebody else the next week until I found eventually a company and then another company and then I'm doing brand work and stuff like that. In the beginning, what was the question again?
The question was, have you ever written screenplays?
Yeah. So very quickly, I started doing client work. So I didn't really have too much creative time, energy, or space to work on my own passion projects.
Right.
So like it was really about like answering my phone or answering my DM and seeing a project that somebody already had written.
Right.
And then them asking if I can just figure out how to shoot it, edit it, package it, and kind of give it back to them. So I leaned really heavy into like that process in the beginning, just like, you know, taking client work. And when you're taking client work, you don't really, there's really not much room for your own kind of like writing or unless someone hired me to do that. I really wasn't really doing that much.
Gotcha.
But I have taken a couple like longer format, still short form, like movie kind of projects, and we've entered them into film festivals, and they won a bunch of film festivals in like 2001 and 2002. So I've definitely explored that world. Again, it's a total different style of production than I'm used to, and in good ways and in bad ways. It's not necessarily something that my enthusiasm isn't really held in that type of production yet, but maybe in the future.
Did you said 2000? I'm assuming you meant 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what I meant. What did I say? 2001,
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I was doing the math in my head. I'm like, but
I'd have to be like 12.
Yeah, but people do it at that, so I just didn't know. But so you did a couple film festivals. That was actually a question I was going to ask later, but we already knocked that out. So tell me about. I see you're wearing the Junkbox merch. Yeah. Tell me like where that came from.
Junkbox Ai is my newest project that I'm working on. It's an AI, so it's just a content creation project where I'm just putting out a new style of content every day. Well, it's the same style of content, but I'm putting out a new upload every day of this specific style of content that's powered by AI, generative adversarial network technology. So it's like it's pretty much just AI animations.
Okay.
And it's I have a content page that I just put out a bunch of stuff, and it's been growing ever since I started it in December 2020. What are we in 23 now?
Yeah.
2022, right at the end of last year.
Yeah, so you're talking about like 9 months about.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Exactly. And I've just been getting a ton of really good feedback, and it's been kind of like just giving me the motivation to just keep doing it more and more. So I've just been kind of growing and just kind of seeing where it's going to go.
When you first started that, were you expecting to get the kind of reaction that you ended up getting?
No, not at all. Just to put it in perspective for people who are listening or watching, I started the account in December 2022, so about 9 months ago. And for about like the first 3 months, there wasn't like, and it wasn't anything crazy. I maybe had like worked up maybe over 1,000 followers on the page from doing just like content every day. And I wasn't really getting a ton of engagement, but I had a couple big breaks when Questlove, Snoop Dogg, a couple major celebrities had discovered my work, and they started sharing it out. And I went on like a couple weeks of a bunch of celebrities kind of sharing my work just out of appreciation. And I started doing a bunch of like celebrity themed work to try to get more of their attention.
Before that, you weren't really focusing on celebrities?
No, not really.
Okay, because by the time I caught on to it, I was seeing like all celebrities. So.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I do a lot.
Yeah.
So once I realized that there was something there, it just kind of went full force with the celebrity fan art.
Yeah.
And my page just kind of skyrocketed. So in 9 months, it went from like 1,000 followers, somewhere around that, to it's still growing, 240 240. Now I'm at 240,000. I'm going to hit 250,000 probably by the end of this month.
How many accounts do you reach in a typical month?
25 million.
Shit. That's
crazy.
Well,
I don't know if it's going to stay like that, but that's not my typical, obviously. That's the most I've ever gotten. That's what it is right now. Right now I'm at the peak of my growth. I don't know if it's going to kind of start sloping down or slope up. It seems to be going like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, logically, if the content is stuff that people are interested in, you would think that it would continue to grow from there, and at the very least stay at the same level. But, I don't know. I guess only time will tell that. And do you have other ideas with that same project moving forward, or is the content have you just kind of found your voice with that now and that's just what you're doing, or is it still evolving?
I have a ton of ideas, and it's great because it's kind of taking its own shape now because, like at first I was just kind of really exploiting the use of the tool for my own creative inquiries. Whatever I wanted to see, I would make. Yeah. And I've just really like OD'd on that. So now I'm like exploring taking on other people's ideas and inquiries. So where at first it was kind of just for me, and I was like Box Visuals, my traditional videography company, was how I kind of like service the world and make a living. Junkbox Ai was kind of like my hobby, and it was like my own creative content page. Now that I've grown it so big, it's really hard to not like listen to some of the opportunities and inquiries that people are giving my way. So I'm just kind of just taking my time. I have a partner of mine named Nick, who's a great help in kind of like weeding through the DMs and emails. And there's some really, really cool stuff on the table, which like kind of naturally kind of pushes me and pivots me into different realms where at first I said, okay, my goal right now is just to put out one post a day. You know what I mean? And by doing that, we get an inquiry here, and now like we're hired to put out 6 animations before the 3rd or something like that. So it kind of gives you a little bit of direction when you start kind of taking inquiries and stuff like that. So I'm gonna kind of like do some client work for a little bit. When I get bored of that, kind of go back to doing what I want. When I get bored of that, do some client work. Kind of just bounce around for a little while until I figure out what I am. But originally, this wasn't supposed to be anything special. It was supposed to be a place just to dump some excessive content that didn't fit on my normal portfolio.
Gotcha. All right, so it started off as a hobby, turned into something. So, if people are interested in creating AI work, like what's a couple tips you can give them just to learn like the basics of how to get involved with that?
Definitely. You should totally take a look into, first I would start off, I recommend everybody wants to learn AI animation because it's really cool looking, but, and it's as tempting as it is to dive right into that. I always suggest just kind of like mess with some kind of image generation AI tools, like Midjourney is a good one. I know Bing has a image generator. Stable Diffusion has an image generation software. But image generation software, more or less, is it's a new technology that just became really popular. It's where you type in a sentence and then a high resolution, high fidelity, it could be 3D, 2D, or some kind of image or illustration is generated right before your eyes. It takes a couple seconds and it's there, and it's unique, and it's something that's never been there before, and it's made using, it references images from all over the internet that are stored in a data set somewhere. So but it uses the language that you type into the prompt to kind of recreate its interpretation of whatever you asked it to create. So I suggest anybody who's interested in learning AI animation, start off with some kind of image generation software first. Understand how to design prompts, understand how to talk to an AI model, understand by doing that, you'll kind of understand what an AI model thinks and sees based on what you type in. And then once you get a good grasp on that, then you should jump over to a program called Stable Diffusion or Stable Warp Fusion. There's a bunch of YouTube video tutorials out there that you can access to kind of get you up to speed with how to run it and use it properly. It's not a cheap software, and it's definitely very time consuming. Huge learning curve if you don't have any traditional editing experience. if you do have any traditional editing experience, it'll definitely kind of give you a head start in that world, because a lot of the terminology and lingo can kind of be kind of like, it could kind of cross over.
Okay.
But if you like it as much as I do, it's not hard to learn. You know what I mean? It's really easy to figure out.
Yeah, it's probably more fun to play around with it, so you don't feel like you're, working on something.
For sure. It's extremely fun to play around with if you're used to sitting in front of a computer for long periods of time to find enjoyment. Like video gamers would probably love it. Editors, would probably love it. Music producers would love it. Okay. Anybody who's like used to sitting in front of a screen for a while would definitely not find this, annoying.
Nice. Now, are there any other projects that you're working on that aren't as much for business as they are just for pleasure? Like, do you do any other type of videography where it's not client work and you're just doing it just to screw around with the camera and editing?
That's where the AI stuff started. So like the name of the company, I call it a company, it's not a company, but the name of the project is Junkbox Ai. And the reason why I called it the Junkbox was because I fell in love with Midjourney as a tool, just a hobby tool, AI image generation, fell in love with Stable Diffusion, AI animation, and it didn't fit inside my normal portfolio, that type of content. Mm-hmm. So I made a junk box so I can just put that content and throw it into the junk box, because I didn't feel like, I was tired of just throwing it away, making this stuff and then throwing it away and no one ever seeing it.
Right.
So I made a junk box page just to throw my overflow of content, and that was pretty much my hobby project, until it started getting more traction than my actual business. Right. And now I'm still kind of looking for a new hobby project, but I'm always like I watch a lot of podcasts and I watch a lot of YouTube creators. I get a lot of inspiration from them, like not necessarily in terms of shaping my content, but in like motivation and volume and how much effort I put into content creation. I get a lot of inspiration from a lot of YouTubers and podcasters. So I don't know, maybe in the future I've been thinking about kind of maybe even coming up with a tutorial playlist of teaching people kind of how to get into content creation. Nothing in specific, but like kind of dabble into the world of kind of like, like lifestyle advice and stuff like that. But
yeah.
For now, nothing crazy. I spend too much time behind a camera for work to like look at it as something to do after work. I
was actually going to ask you that too, because I've seen, just because I've been editing videos again and doing stuff, I'm always watching tutorials on YouTube and finding stuff like that. And I went to college with a kid who, like, his whole business is based on teaching people how to shoot video and edit video. And he sells all these packages for Final Cut that it's like titles, like different titles and stuff like that you can use. He's called Buff Nerds, I think. Okay. I don't know if he's like famous like that, but I always see his stuff because we went to college together and he's on my Facebook. And then like I see like I know he used to do music videos for this artist called Kyle, who like kind of blew up years later, but I don't know what he's doing now. The point is I noticed that like he's doing all this stuff and he's out in Arizona. And he built this whole like studio that you could basically go to and use, like, so he's got like a crashed airplane there, and like I'm sure you've seen stuff like that. So
yeah, I may even have heard of the one you're talking about, because there's not many places that have that crashed airplane feature. So
yeah, he's got that and like all kinds of different rooms set up that you could just pay to go film there. So that's what I was kind of picturing in my head when I was going to ask you, like, what's next for Junkbox and for Box Visuals. Have you ever thought about doing something like that where you'd open up a studio or do tutorials and things like that?
I love that idea. And I'm super familiar with those types of businesses, and I use them all the time in my work, and I constantly kind of recommend them to my clientele if they're looking for locations and stuff like that. I've thought about stuff like that too, but I don't know. I really like the idea of just really coning in on my skill set as a videographer right for right now until something is extremely obvious to me. I like the idea of just becoming a really dialed in videographer. It takes a lot of my creative energy to keep up with the volume that I've kind of like been putting out, and and I don't have too much other kind of creative space or, you know, physical time in general to even try to, you know, do anything different. So I like to kind of go all in, laser light focus on just really maximizing my potential with a camera in my hand. As soon as I feel comfortable, I just kind of like try to find a new style or technique or tool or piece of equipment that will make me uncomfortable again.
Gotcha.
And then get comfortable again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just do that over and over.
Do you think you were born at the perfect time as far as, like, I think about this a lot. Like, it's 2023 now. Like, some businesses are it's almost harder to do business because the internet breeds so much competition. But at the same time, when it comes to video, like, I was thinking about this on the way over here, like, in the 80s, videographers really did weddings, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And, like, nobody was just recording music videos. Nobody was making their own content because you had nowhere to put it. So do you feel like 2023 is almost like the best time that we've ever seen for people who want to have a business doing something creative in general?
So far, yeah. I mean, I think that I like the whole entertainment aspect of content creation. So if video cameras and social media platforms and videos in general weren't popular or weren't needed as much as they are today, I'd probably be a street performer or something like that. Right. Just like I'd still, my enthusiasm and motivation lies in getting feedback. You know what I mean? So if I'm not putting something out in order to get feedback, then I'm not really motivated in what I'm doing. So like, that's why it's hard for me to kind of do like, it's hard for me to work for, it's hard for me to, you know, work a 9 to 5 in a job that I don't, that I didn't create because it's not my goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, like, if you had to guess, what do you think is the next big move for you, though? Like, do you think that you're going to probably, because you mentioned real estate, you mentioned all these other things. If you had to do something outside of video and, you know, right now there was nothing holding you back from exploring something, what do you think that would be?
Probably, well, I don't know. That's a good question. I've never really thought about it. I haven't really thought about it. So that's a tough question because I'd want to actually put some thought into it. But I think if I wasn't doing video and I had the time to kind of venture off and do something completely different, are we saying for work or for passion, for fun, or like?
I would say, I mean, it could be anything. Cause like, I think about that all the time. Like, as far as like being successful, what does that mean to me? And for me, it's not necessarily a number monetarily. It's more of being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And then I ask myself, what would I be doing if money wasn't an object? Like, would I be sitting here in an office right now, or would I be traveling the world? Like, what would I be doing if I was just doing anything that I wanted to be? I know,
it sounds so stupid and cliche, Rich, but I really am doing, like, I'm doing everything I want to do. Like, every day I wake up the time that I choose to wake up, whether it's early or it's late. I take off if I don't feel like working. Like, I'm not saying like the reason why I love life right now is because I get to just slack. No, but like some of the reasons why people don't like their day-to-day grind is like by taking the risk of not knowing if I'm going to have work next week. When you do have work next week, one of the rewards you walk away with is like not financial freedom, but just like kind of I guess schedule freedom. You know what I mean? I get to choose when I want to work and choose when I don't want to work. And as I kind of, I've taken time to, I've taken these runs of like work, 365 days a year, no breaks, 3 a.m., wake up early every day, and trading in my time for money to the maximum extent. And as I grow older, I realize that it's kind of 50-50 for me. I like having free time. I like having money. So like, I guess if I had all the money in the world, I'd probably travel a little bit more. But my cats don't really like traveling, and I love staying around my cat. So maybe I would probably just buy a really dope house in San Diego, right? and I'd have a room that was just dedicated to I'm literally going to describe my life right now, just I guess in San Diego, but I'd have a room that I can edit and create content in. I'd have a cinema camera that's fully charged at all times. I'd have a drone, and I'd have a nice place to just like watch TV and chill. I'm a really simple dude. I just like chilling, dude. You know what I mean? I just don't want to be in the rat race my whole life. That's really the goal. The goal is to just be able to just sizzle out somewhere and not have to worry about anything, you know?
Listen, that sounds like a great life to me. If I could do everything that I do right here and be in San Diego or LA, like, same thing for me. Like, I actually just like Cali a lot. And if I could live there for half the year and live here for half the year and have everything the same pretty much, I'd be completely happy with that.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much for me either. I'm the same way. Like, I've got pets, so it's like, I'd love to just travel the world the whole time, but it's like, I've got a dog to think about. I got 2 cats to think about. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to have 2 different locations. I could drive across the country, you know, once a year, twice a year.
I can't think of like a better job. If I had to, like, it'd probably be like maybe an assistant for like a crazy rock and roll like celebrity or something. I mean, I wouldn't even want to do that. It sounds like a lot of work. Like, I can't think of a better job for myself, because it's really just about what you enjoy doing. You know what I mean? Me personally, I enjoy content. So,
is there anybody who you have in mind that you're like, shit, like, I hope one day I get to work with that guy? Like, is there like one person that you could think of where you're like, it would make my life's goal complete if I worked with that person?
Yeah, actually. It's and if you're out there, please just hit me up. But it's somebody who trusts the creative process and trusts that I will make intentional decisions that will only add greater value to the end result of the project. So it's nobody in particular.
Okay.
It's just it's the type of clientele that comes to me for my creative expertise, not just because I have an expensive camera. You know what I mean? But I guess if I had to pick, like, I've always said that, like, Elon Musk seems fascinating to me, and I'd love to interview him because he seems very well spoken, I guess, kind of. He pauses a lot in interviews, but he seems like
he's a weird dude, but like, I just like watching him talk. Yeah,
and I know I want to do like a big documentary at some point in my life. So maybe if I could like talk to somebody cool, I don't know. I'd have to put more thought into it, but
you don't have a topic in mind. You just know that you want to do a documentary.
Yeah, I like documentaries because like I like the format of shooting a story or like a dialogue, and then or a monologue, and then thinking of what scenes do I have to shoot to illustrate what was just said, like what B-roll shots do I have to shoot, and that format to me is just like so easy, and it's so easy for me to expand on that. So
some of the best documentaries are like the dumbest thing. Like, I've seen some documentaries where it's just like the guy who makes the documentary had some weird thing happen in his life, so he's like, so he goes and like interviews people that he knows. Like, I can't remember what it was. What's
your favorite documentary, if you could remember?
It's hard because there's so many good like docu-series.
Well, what's your favorite genre of documentary? Is it murder, mystery?
A lot of my favorites are crime. But I've seen documentaries about the weirdest shit that I just was like so intrigued by. There was one on Netflix that was about
tickling.
Yo, I seen that one. I know the one that was on Amazon. I saw that though. It's like a tickling competition. Yeah, like
I didn't watch it, but I've heard it was I heard it was really good. I heard it takes a crazy twist. Or something.
Me and my girlfriend watched that, and we just laughed the whole time because it's like the weirdest shit. Like you would never think that this, but it's basically they were trying to track down like who this tickling guy was who was buying all these tickling videos. But there was one that I saw that was about. It was based in Staten Island, and it was about. There was a rumor about some guy who was like kidnapping kids or something like that, but there was no evidence that there was. It was almost like a boogie monster type of thing that people in Staten Island believe in. I don't remember the name of it, but bro, all those like ones on Netflix, like The Stairs, Making a Murderer, like all that shit that everybody watches, I get obsessed with those things.
Yeah, me too.
So I love documentaries.
Yeah, I like a good like crime documentary, and my favorite types are the ones that
History ones too are good.
I like the ones that will take a twist, like when something happens in the something groundbreaking happens in the documentary, and it's like they started filming it at the right time to be able to show the before, the difference, and then what happens after. And it's like, it's almost like making a movie without writing it. You know what I mean? It's just like you happen to start this at the right time to see a whole movie play out, you know?
Did you see The Great and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia?
Yeah, that was like Johnny Knoxville, like fun to that.
Yeah, like
really good one.
That was really good, bro. Because like I was thinking about that in the middle of it. She has a baby, and they take the baby away from her because they find drugs in her system.
You can't even write that shit.
Yeah.
There's another one on HBO called that. I mean, it really embodies what I'm talking about, but it's called The Jinx with Robert Durst. He was you should check it out. He was a billionaire or a millionaire because his father was wealthy, whatever.
Okay.
He had a lot of psychological trauma. His mother committed suicide in front of him, whatnot.
Wow.
So he grew up to be a murderer, and he got sentenced, and he went to court, but he was found not guilty because he's a millionaire. You know what I mean? So he killed somebody, but he never had to go to jail for it because he's a millionaire. He had a lot of publicity and press when it was happening.
Was his family all in real estate?
Maybe. Yeah, I think they owned a lot.
My girlfriend might have told me about this, but go on.
He had a lot of press and publicity when it was all going down, and he was always kind of like a little bit torn over the fact that his family was like the successful ones, and he was just just a great grandchild who just didn't really do anything and just inherited everything. So when he had all the cameras on him for that, while he, when he was going to court for billionaire's grandson in court for murder, blah, 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 he kind of fell in love with that. Okay. So he hired a team of documentarians to come and pretty much after everything was said and done, years later, he's like, I want to tell the story again. I want to hire you guys. So he hired just a crew to retell the story. And as they're retelling the stories of him saying, I was innocent, they started uncovering this guy really it wasn't innocent, and they started finding actual evidence in his story and the things that he was showing him. And then they realized that it was even more than what he went to court for. There was even way more. And then it gets down to the point where these people were hired by him to shoot a documentary. And now the documentary is about them in their hotel saying we don't know what to do. And they're talking to you, saying this
I gotta watch this tonight.
Yeah. and then eventually, I don't want to ruin it for you, but they eventually switch the whole tempo from, okay, we're going to shoot whatever this guy wants us to shoot, to now we're undercover, and we're going to try to get the answers we want out of him, to the point where they literally get a confession.
Oh my God.
It's out now. I'm not ruining anything for you. No. They put him behind jail, he's in jail now.
I'll put a spoiler alert in the description, but I got to watch this. That sounds
It's a 7-episode, if it makes it to HBO.
Yeah.
And it's a
You said it's 7 episodes?
7 episodes, mini series. Each episode's about an hour long. So it's definitely a good
That's
binge.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to binge watch the shit out of that.
The Jinx.
Have you ever seen Soft White Underbelly?
No, I've heard of it though.
That's another thing. My girlfriend's into this stuff probably more than I am, but she it's a YouTube channel, and a lot of people I've heard of and seen on other things they interview, but they've interviewed pedophiles. Apparently there's a whole pedophile community in Florida somewhere.
I've definitely seen Soft White Underbelly.
Yeah, and they'll interview drug addicts, homeless people. They had some mob guys on there and all kinds of, but that's pretty, I've seen some good episodes on there too. It's the same type of thing though. They kind of go after people that are the dregs of society and just interview them. And some of them are recurring roles too. So it's kind of interesting.
Sometimes I'll be driving and I'll pass an overpass and I'll see that one homeless person who's just you always see in your town, just generically, he's just there, and no one ever really pays no mind to him. Sometimes you pull over and give him a couple bucks. Yeah. But I've always kind of had ideas to one day pull over and just like, you know, just start a conversation and then offer to kind of like, you know, expand and record his story or something like that. And
There's no reason not to,
just
you know?
see what kind of stories.
Yeah,
there,
like how
know?
the hell how'd you get here?
Yeah, like why do you carry around that jacket everywhere you go? You know what I mean? Like just ask the question and just see where it develops.
Yeah.
That's the best kind of shit, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like you need to have balls to just make that investment and just go out there and just ask him, hey, can I talk to you?
Yeah. I know a guy in Babylon that wants a documentary to be made about him.
Oh boy.
Austin Kitt.
Yeah, I've heard about that guy.
He's all over TikTok, and every video he does, he puts hashtag Netflix, hashtag, like he's looking to get a documentary made about him.
100%, yeah. He probably will. You know, like I'm already seeing YouTube channels kind of like pop up. His name is popping up all over social media. Yeah. Facebook.
He's
Instagram,
gone so
TikTok.
viral on TikTok. I'd be shocked if somebody didn't just jump on the opportunity because you know it's going to get views.
Yeah.
Just based on the fact that
people are doing it all over the world right now. Like there's Australian accounts that are covering Austin Kitt.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
He's pretty famous actually in his own right.
Yeah. Austin Kitt is I don't know if you've ever talked to it with your audience, but he's a like, I guess he's a developer or construction.
Well, he's a lineman. He works in the electric union or whatever the hell it's really called. But what he did was he purchased a home in Babylon Village, and it's on a beautiful piece of property. It's a waterfront property. And so his story is that he got approval from Babylon Village on his plans to build this home, and that the builders basically went through with what they had permission to build. And at some point, when the home was almost finished, the village came in and put a stop work order in and said that the house was not up to code and it wasn't safe. And basically, he's out all this money now, and he's not allowed to finish the work on the house until they demolish what they've done basically and build a whole new foundation. And, he's got a lawsuit against the village. He's always at the village hall meetings, and he's on TikTok making all these, every time something happens in the village, he goes back at them. And, there's Facebook pages that are attacking him as a person and attacking his character. And it's kind of like a story that if you get into it, if you go on his TikTok, you'll go on a binge like all night long, just watching video after video.
Yeah.
And it's actually like, in a way, like you don't know what's really going on. I personally feel like the guy got fucked over and he's kind of just trying to get somebody to take responsibility for it so he could finish building his house. And it seems like he's being targeted by powerful people in the village. So,
yeah, it's a crazy story. It seems like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope justice is served on whoever deserves to be justified.
Yeah. Like I'm hesitant to take sides in it, but because he makes a very compelling claim that everybody in the village is connected with the mob and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Maybe I'll get him on the podcast one day. I don't know if he necessarily fits, the message of this podcast in general. But
maybe you can make a special episode.
Yeah, just a special episode. Maybe I won't number it and I'll just throw it out there and it'll be bonus episode. It won't be episode 3 or 4.
Right.
Who knows? So yeah, I mean, is there anything that you want to plug out there that you would, tell the people watching this to go check out on, your social media, YouTube, anything like that?
Well, if you guys aren't already subscribed to Rich's accounts, he does some really awesome lifestyle education, and I help him in creating a lot of this stuff. And to be honest with you guys, just by filming a lot of his stuff, I learn a lot of kind of how to run my business a little bit cleaner. So first and foremost, definitely subscribe here if you aren't already. And I have 2 different accounts. My traditional portfolio is Box Visuals, and my Junkbox Ai account, Junkbox Ai. That's pretty much it. I don't really have a website or anything like that. Just at the moment, I have a merch site you guys can find in one of my bios on either one of my pages. But the best way to honestly support me is just check out my work. And if you like it, just continue to look at it and, just give me your opinion on it. If you think I'm doing crappy stuff, let me know. If you hate something that I put out, please let me know. Write in the comment sections in capital letters. And if you love my stuff, do the same too. Just let me know in the comments, please.
Awesome, bro. Yeah. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for watching episode 2. We'll be back every Sunday. So make sure you follow on Instagram to see any other short form content that we're putting out. And next week we'll have a different guest. And thanks for watching.